This is one of the longest and most intense debates in modern history, a conflict that outlived revolutions, brought down empires, bankrupted superpowers, and split the world in half. For over a century, capitalism and socialism were not just economic terms. They were instruments of conflict, and behind every patriotic speech, every worker uprising, every economic crisis, and every proxy war, this debate shaped the world we live in. But here's the part no one really talks about. No system worked the way it was written in textbooks. Not once, not anywhere. And when things escalated, war, famine, inflation, collapse, the truth revealed itself with brutal clarity. The story begins long before the words capitalism or socialism ever existed. For most of human history, there wasn't really an economy. There was only survival. Kings claimed divine right. Landowners owned everything. Peasants produced just enough to avoid starving. Progress was extremely slow. For thousands of years, life was a zero-sum game. If someone rose, someone else fell. Wealth came from land, labor, and war. Productivity barely increased, and the idea that ordinary people could become rich through trade or innovation sounded completely reasonable. Then, the Industrial Revolution turned the world upside down. In the late 1700s, Britain was a pressure cooker of coal, iron, capital, and ambition. Machines replaced workers, factories replaced workshops, and a new kind of power emerged, the power of private capital. For the first time, individuals could invest, take risks, and own property at a scale previously reserved for kings. Productivity increased massively. Some wages rose, while others fell deeper into misery. Inequality grew faster than ever before. Cities were choked with smoke. Children were forced to work 12-hour shifts. Slums were breeding grounds for disease. But no matter how bad it looked, one fact did not change. Capitalism created more fame, wealth, and speed than the world had ever seen. This is exactly where socialism was born, not as a perfect vision, but as a reaction to the brutality of capitalism. In the mid-1800s, Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels looked at factories, uprisings, and exploitation and reached one conclusion. The problem was the system itself. They saw capitalist wealth as stolen labor. They argued that if workers owned the factories, if profits were shared, if production was based on human needs, then society would become fair. There would be no exploitation, no crises. Everyone would be equal. This idea sounded good, logical, and achievable, and for people living under harsh conditions, it felt like a cure. But theory is one thing. Reality is another. The first major attempt at socialism came after the 1917 Russian Revolution. Vladimir Lenin took over a starving and underdeveloped country. A new system was created. The state owned everything. Prices were set by the state. Production was controlled by targets. Private sector was eliminated. In theory, it looked perfect. In practice, it created chaos. No one knew what people actually needed. There was no competition. There was no motivation. Result: famine, long lines, collapse of agriculture. But capitalism wasn't doing well either. In 1929, the Great Depression hit. Banks collapsed. Unemployment rose to around 25%. Economies were shattered. Capitalism also seemed like it was collapsing. Then came World War II. This tested both systems. The Soviets mobilized quickly. The United States became a production machine. After the war, the world split. Soviets to central planning USA to regulated capitalism. The results were clear. Soviets grew rapidly at first, but then stagnated, fell behind in technology. Capitalism learned from crises, adapted itself, became stronger. In 1989, with the fall of the Berlin Wall, the Soviet system collapsed. But the story didn't end there. In 2008, the financial crisis hit. Capitalism's problems returned. Inequality, debt bubbles. So what happened today? No country is purely capitalist. No country is purely socialist. All countries use mixed systems. Examples: Scandinavia, welfare state plus free market. United States, right arrow, strong capitalism plus inequality issues. China, right arrow, state-controlled capitalism. The biggest lesson. The main message of the text is this: people shape systems, not the other way around. Power accumulates in every system. In capitalism, through money. In socialism, through the state. The real problem is not the system, but control of power. Final message. The best system equals the one that adapts best. Pure ideology doesn't work. Balance is necessary. Freedom plus control. Market plus state incentives plus security. Closing thought. The real debate is not capitalism versus socialism. It is, who controls the power? Because power never disappears. It only changes hands.